The Shinjuku Jyoin Club's recessed lighting carved shadows across Phoebe's face as she backed away, pulse racing. Ethan's hand shot out, fingers locking around her forearm like a trap. You think you can ghost me? You're still mine. Her eyes darted frantically across the exclusive lounge. That's when she saw him, a man who commanded silence like the air itself bowed to his presence. Dark eyes, severe jawline, deadly calm wrapped in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. Without thinking, Phoebe wrenched free and did the unthinkable. She crossed the room and sat directly on the stranger's lap. His body went still beneath her, every muscle coiling like a blade about to strike. The room temperature seemed to drop. Men in dark suits at nearby tables shifted, hands drifting toward their jackets. She felt his breath against her temple, felt the lethal precision in his voice. You have 30 seconds, he murmured in low, exact Japanese, to explain why you are inviting death into my circle. Ethan stalked toward them, fury contorting his face. The stranger's hand settled on Phoebe's waist. Firm, possessive final. Do not move, Heim, he commanded, quietly switching to flawless English. Breathe, and tell me who this lowlife is. Heim, princess? Who the hell had she just sat on? Phoebe Allen had learned early that survival in Tokyo meant mastering invisibility. At 28, she'd perfected the art, a skill that served her well in a city where gaijin stood out and rent devoured savings. The Shinjuku Jyoin Club wasn't her world, but Akari had insisted, forcing her into a silk slip dress that hugged curves Phoebe usually buried beneath modest cardigans and loose trousers. You need this, Akari had said, pressing the VIP pass into her hand. 3 months of hiding is pathetic. Takenaka didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His fingers tightened fractionally on Phoebe's waist as Ethan advanced, and the room rearranged itself like a chessboard responding to an unspoken command. 2 men in impeccable suits rose from a corner table, moving with liquid precision to flank Ethan's path. Another blocked the exit. They didn't touch him. They didn't speak. They simply existed in his space, close enough that Ethan's swagger died mid-step. Who the fuck do you think? Ethan started. Takenaka's voice cut through the ambient music like a blade through silk. He spoke 3 words in Japanese, low and final. Kuchio Tojiro. Shut your mouth. The temperature in the lounge plummeted. Ethan froze, confusion flickering across his face. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Every eye in the VIP section had turned away, a synchronized retreat into studied ignorance. Takenaka continued in English, his accent precise, each syllable measured. You enter a place you do not belong. You put your hands on a woman who clearly does not want them. You demonstrate no giri, no honor, no awareness of the grave insult you are committing. He paused, dark eyes flat and merciless. Leave now. Do not return. Do not contact her again. She's my nothing. The word landed like a death sentence. She is nothing to you. Not anymore. One of the suited men placed a hand, light, almost courteous, on Ethan's shoulder. The message was clear. Ethan's face flushed red, then pale. He looked at Phoebe, still frozen on Takenaka's lap, and whatever he saw in her expression or the dangerous stillness of the man beneath her made him step back. He left. The men followed, a silent procession ensuring his departure was permanent. Phoebe's hands were shaking. She tried to stand, but Takenaka's grip held her in place for one more moment. Slowly, he said quietly. You are safe. Breathe first. She obeyed, hating how much she needed the command. When he finally released her, she stood on unsteady legs. The lounge had returned to its usual hum, conversations resuming as if nothing had happened, as if the world hadn't just tilted. Takenaka rose, adjusting his cuffs with meticulous care. He reached into his jacket and withdrew a black business card, the embossed characters catching the low light. He held it between 2 fingers, offering it with the formality of a sacred ritual. If he approaches you again, Takenaka said, his voice soft and absolute, you call this number. Consider yourself under my protection, Miss Allen. She took the card. It was heavy, expensive. Real. I don't even know your name, she whispered. His smile was a dark, fleeting thing. Yes, you do. You would not have chosen my lap otherwise. He inclined his head, a gesture somewhere between respect and possession. Masahisa Takenaka. And now you owe me a debt, Phoebe Allen. I will decide when and how you repay it. He walked away, his men materializing to follow, and Phoebe stood alone holding a business card that felt like a contract signed in blood. 3 days passed. Phoebe returned to her cramped shared apartment in Nakano, to her freelance translation work, to her routine of convenience store breakfasts and evening jogs along the Kanda River. She tried to forget the weight of Takenaka's hand on her waist, the lethal calm in his voice. She tried to convince herself it was over. But the business card sat in her wallet, heavy as a stone. And at night, she dreamed of dark eyes and whispered commands. Ethan didn't call, didn't text. The silence should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like the stillness before a storm. On the 4th day, Phoebe came home to find her roommate, Yuki, sitting on the edge of the couch, face pale, hands clenched in her lap. What happened? Phoebe dropped her bag, alarm spiking. Your ex, Yuki said quietly, her voice thin. He came here. He was waiting outside when I got home from work. Ice flooded Phoebe's veins. What did he do? He asked where you were. I said I didn't know. He grabbed my arm. Yuki's voice cracked. He said if I didn't tell you to call him, he'd make sure I regretted it. He said he knows where I work. He said. She stopped, tears spilling over. Phoebe, I'm scared. I don't want trouble. I can't afford trouble. Guilt crushed Phoebe's chest. Yuki had nothing to do with this. She was just a grad student trying to survive in an expensive city. This was Phoebe's mess. Phoebe's monster. I'm sorry, Phoebe whispered. I'm so sorry. Yuki wiped her eyes. Maybe you should just talk to him. Give him what he wants. No. The word came out harder than Phoebe intended. She thought of Takenaka's card, the promise embedded in expensive card stock. Consider yourself under my protection. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. The number was already saved, though she didn't remember doing it. Her thumb hovered over the screen. This was dangerous. She knew that. Accepting help from a man like Takenaka meant stepping into a world she didn't understand. A world of unspoken debts and violent consequences. But Ethan had threatened Yuki. He'd crossed the final line. Phoebe pressed call. It rang once. Moshi Moshi. Takenaka's voice, smooth and unsurprised, as if he'd been waiting. Phoebe's throat closed. She forced out one word, the traditional plea for aid, the word that made this real and irreversible. Tasakite. Save me. Silence. Then, soft and certain. I will handle this. Stay where you are. The line went dead. The black Lexus arrived 20 minutes later, sleek and silent as a predator. Phoebe watched from the apartment window as it idled at the curb, engine purring, windows tinted to opacity. Her pulse hammered in her throat. Yuki touched her shoulder. You don't have to go. But she did. She knew she did. Phoebe descended the narrow stairs and stepped into the cool night air. The rear door of the Lexus opened. Takenaka sat in the back seat, illuminated by the soft interior light, dressed in a dark 3-piece suit that looked like it cost more than her rent. He didn't smile. He simply watched her with those fathomless eyes and gestured to the seat beside him. She slid in. The door closed with a heavy final click. Tell me everything, Takenaka said. Phoebe did. The words tumbled out. Ethan's threat, Yuki's fear, the escalating obsession. Takenaka listened in absolute silence, his expression unreadable, fingers steepled beneath his chin. When she finished, he nodded once. This is already resolved. Phoebe blinked. What? His business visa was revoked 4 hours ago. His passport has been flagged by immigration authorities. At this moment, he is being detained at the Azabu police station for overstaying his visa status and harassment charges filed by a concerned citizen. Takenaka's voice was clinical, detached. By morning, he will be deported. He will not return to Japan. If he attempts to contact you electronically, those communications will be intercepted and flagged. He is removed, Miss Allen. Completely. Phoebe's breath caught. How did you? True power, Takenaka said quietly, turning to face her fully, is not about creating chaos. It is about removing problems so thoroughly that they cease to exist. Violence is inefficient. It draws attention. It creates blood feuds and police investigations. His gaze held hers, dark and absolute. I do not need to touch him to destroy him. I simply make him irrelevant. The casual enormity of it left Phoebe dizzy. He dismantled Ethan's entire life in hours. With phone calls. With influence. With the kind of power that didn't need to raise its voice. You're afraid of me now, Takenaka observed, not a question. Yes, Phoebe admitted. Good. He leaned back, the faintest hint of satisfaction crossing his features. Fear is clarity. And you are a smart woman, Phoebe Allen. You understand what this means. She did. She'd stepped into his world, accepted his protection. And men like Takenaka didn't give gifts without expecting something in return. What do you want from me? She whispered. His smile was slow, dangerous, and almost gentle. That, he said, we will discuss tomorrow. For now you are safe. Your roommate is safe. Sleep without fear. The Lexus stopped outside her building. The door opened. Phoebe stepped out on shaking legs, and the car disappeared into the Tokyo night like it had never existed at all. The invitation arrived the next morning. A formal card, hand-delivered, requesting her presence at Takenaka's private residence in Setagaya. A car would collect her at sunset. Refusal, Phoebe understood, was not an option. The compound was hidden behind high walls and ancient trees, a pocket of traditional Japan insulated from the modern chaos of the city. The driver led her through a stone garden, past a koi pond reflecting the dying light, to a structure of dark wood and paper screens. She was asked to remove her shoes. A woman in a simple kimono guided her to a washitsu, a perfect Japanese room where Takenaka knelt beside a low table, preparing tea with the ritualistic precision of a master. Sit, he said quietly, not looking up. Phoebe knelt across from him, the tatami mat firm beneath her knees. The room smelled of green tea and hinoki wood. Outside, a bamboo fountain tapped its rhythmic meditation. Takenaka performed the tea ceremony in silence, each movement deliberate, controlled. When he finally offered her the bowl, their fingers brushed. The tea was bitter and perfect. You want to know why? He said at last. Yes. He set down his own bowl, gazed distant. I had a sister, young, brilliant, full of dreams. She fell in love with a man of power and money. A politician. He was charming in public, a monster in private. Takenaka's voice remained level, but Phoebe heard the steel beneath. He isolated her, controlled her, destroyed her piece by piece. And I was too young, too powerless to stop it. By the time I had the means, she was gone. The silence stretched, heavy with old grief. I made a vow, Takenaka continued, that I would never allow that again. Not where I could prevent it. The weak, the cornered, those with no recourse, they would have my protection. Always. Phoebe's throat tightened. I'm not weak. No. He looked at her then, something like respect in his dark eyes. You are exhausted. You are fighting for independence in a country that makes it nearly impossible for someone like you. That struggle, Miss Allen, is a form of honor. Giri, you do not beg. You do not surrender. You run until you cannot run, and then you make an impossible gamble. His lips curved slightly. You sat on the lap of the most dangerous man in the room and bet your life he would choose mercy. Did he? Phoebe asked. Choose mercy. I chose you, Takenaka said simply. He slid a folder across the table. I am offering you employment. Translation work for my international trade company. Legitimate business. The pay is triple what you make now. You will have an office, benefits, security. He paused. And if you wish, a room here. In this compound. Separate quarters. Complete privacy. Safe. Phoebe stared at the folder, her pulse roaring in her ears. What's the cost? She whispered. Your trust, Takenaka replied. And your presence. I do not need your fear or your obedience. I need your mind, your skill, and your choice to stay. She opened the folder. The contract was real, detailed, astonishingly generous. This is insane, she breathed. Yes, he agreed. But you are considering it. She was. God help her, she was. Phoebe moved into the compound 3 days later, her belongings fitting into 2 suitcases and a backpack, evidence of a life spent ready to run. Her quarters occupied a separate wing, a serene space of shoji screens and minimalist elegance. A bedroom, a bathroom with a deep soaking tub, a small office overlooking a private garden of moss and stone. It was the most beautiful place she'd ever lived. The work was exactly as Takenaka promised. Translation of trade contracts, shipping manifests, corporate correspondence. All legitimate, all legal. But the men who delivered the documents wore expensive suits and moved with the controlled menace of coiled violence. They called Takenaka Oyabun, father, boss, and treated Phoebe with careful, absolute respect. She understood what she was seeing. The quiet discipline, the unspoken hierarchy, the empire built on layers of legitimate business and carefully concealed power. It should have terrified her. Instead, she found it strangely comforting. There were rules here. Structure. No chaos, no unpredictability, just absolute order maintained by Takenaka's iron will. They shared meals in the main house, dinners served in a formal dining room where Takenaka discussed history, philosophy, the complexities of international trade law. He listened when she spoke, asked her opinions on business strategy, treated her intellect like something precious. Phoebe felt herself unfurling, shedding the exhausted invisibility she'd worn for years. One evening, 3 weeks in, they sat in the garden as twilight deepened. Takenaka poured her sake, the gesture domestic and startling. "You're settling in," he observed. "I feel safe," Phoebe admitted. "For the first time in years." "You are safe." He met her eyes, his expression unreadable. "You will always be safe here, Phoebe. This is your home now, if you choose it." The words hung between them, weighted with meaning beyond simple employment. Phoebe's heart kicked against her ribs. She saw the way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't watching. Not possessive, not hungry, but careful. Reverent. "Why me?" she asked quietly. Takenaka considered the question, turning his sake cup between elegant fingers. "Because you did not ask for a savior. You made a choice in a moment of crisis, and you have continued to choose, every day since. You are here because you want to be. That matters to me more than you know." Somewhere in the garden, water dripped into stone. The night air smelled of jasmine and rain. Phoebe realized the lines had blurred. Employer and employee. Protector and protected. This thing growing between them was dangerous and inevitable, and already too late to stop. "I should go to bed," she said, standing. Takenaka rose with her, a shadow in the darkness. "Sleep well, Phoebe Allen." She walked to her quarters, feeling his eyes on her back, and for the first time in her life, she didn't want to run. She wanted to stay. It happened on a Friday evening, over sake and silence in Takenaka's private study. Rain drummed against the shoji screens, cocooning them in warmth and shadow. Phoebe had been reviewing contracts, but the words blurred. Something had been building between them for weeks. A tension that made every casual touch feel deliberate, every shared glance weighted with unspoken questions. "You seem distant tonight," Takenaka observed, setting down his brush. He'd been practicing calligraphy, the characters bold and flawless. Phoebe exhaled slowly. "I've been thinking about my future. What I actually want." "And what is that?" The question was gentle, but his focus was absolute. Phoebe felt pinned by it, seen in a way that both terrified and exhilarated her. "My own agency," she admitted. "Translation and consulting. Something I build myself. I don't want to just be someone's employee forever." She hesitated, wondering if she'd offended him. Takenaka leaned back, considering. "You would need capital. Clients. A business structure that protects you legally." He tilted his head. "I could provide all of that. I don't want it handed to me," Phoebe said quickly. "I need to earn it." Something shifted in his expression, pride, admiration, something almost like wonder. "That," he said quietly, "is why I love you." The words hung in the air, impossible to unhear. Phoebe's breath stopped. "What?" Takenaka stood, moving around the desk with predatory grace. He knelt before her, close enough that she could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. "Your courage. Your refusal to be anything less than independent. I have known many people who wanted my money, my power, my protection. You are the only one who wanted to stand beside me as an equal." His hand rose, fingers brushing her jaw with devastating gentleness. "I don't need a woman who needs my money," Takenaka continued, voice low and fierce. "I need a woman who is geary, honor, and fire. I need you, Phoebe Allen." "This is dangerous," she whispered. "Yes. You're a dangerous man." "Yes." His thumb traced her lower lip. "And you sat on my lap anyway. You stayed. You chose this." Phoebe closed the distance between them. The kiss was slow, deliberate, a negotiation and a surrender. Takenaka's hand slid into her hair, angling her head, deepening the kiss with controlled intensity that made her dizzy. He tasted like sake and inevitability. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. "You belong here, Phoebe Allen," he murmured. "With me. Not as my employee. Not as someone I protect. As mine." She should have been frightened. She should have run. Instead, she kissed him again, and the choice was made. The call came at 3 in the morning, shattering the fragile peace Phoebe had built. She woke to find Takenaka's side of the bed empty. They'd been sharing a room for 2 weeks now, and voices speaking rapid, tense Japanese in the hallway. She found him in his office, still dressed, face carved from stone. 3 of his men stood at attention, and the atmosphere was laced with barely controlled violence. "What's wrong?" Phoebe asked. Takenaka's eyes met hers, and she saw something she'd never seen before: fear. Not for himself. For her. "Sit down," he said quietly. She sat. He dismissed his men with a gesture and closed the door. When he turned back, the careful control had cracked, showing the ruthless reality beneath. "The Kuroda clan," he began, "is a rival organization. They have been testing boundaries. Tonight they made a move I cannot ignore." He pulled out his phone, showing her a photograph. Her mother's house in Portland. Taken yesterday. A white chrysanthemum, the flower of death, left on the doorstep. Ice flooded Phoebe's veins. "No. No, they can't. They won't touch her," Takenaka said, absolute certainty in his voice. "I have already dispatched protection. But Phoebe, you need to understand what I am. What this life truly is." He knelt before her, gripping her hands. "I have built an empire on violence controlled, on threats never spoken but always understood. I am not a good man. I am a necessary evil. And now, because you are mine, you are a target." Phoebe's world tilted. She'd known abstractly what he was. But this was different. This was her mother's life hanging in the balance. "I have to send you away," Takenaka continued, voice rough. "Kyoto. A safe house. My best men. Until this is resolved." "For how long?" "I don't know." She left that night, whisked to a traditional machiya in Kyoto's quiet Gion district. The house was beautiful and suffocating. 2 silent guards rotated shifts. Phoebe's phone was replaced with a secure line. She was a prisoner in gilded isolation. On the 4th day, a man in a suit appeared at her door, American accent jarring after weeks of Japanese. "Miss Allen? I'm with the U.S. Embassy. We need to talk." He sat across from her in the small tatami room, expression grave. "You're involved with Masahisa Takenaka. We've been monitoring his organization for years. If you cooperate, provide information, we can offer you protection, witness relocation, immunity from prosecution." "Prosecution?" Phoebe's voice cracked. "You're living in his home, working for his companies. Under international law, that makes you complicit. We're offering you a way out before this gets worse." He slid a card across the table. "Think about it. Call me. Because Miss Allen, men like Takenaka don't have happy endings. And the people who love them get buried in the wreckage." He left. Phoebe sat alone, holding the card, and felt the walls closing in. Takenaka arrived 5 days later, unannounced, striding through the machiya's entrance with the coiled tension of a man who'd just waged war. His suit was immaculate, but Phoebe saw the exhaustion in the set of his shoulders, the dangerous edge in his eyes. "It's done," he said simply. "The Kuroda clan has been neutralized. Your mother is safe. You can come home." Phoebe stood slowly, the embassy card burning in her pocket. "What does neutralized mean?" "It means they will never threaten you again." "Did you kill them?" Takenaka's silence was answer enough. Phoebe's hands shook. She pulled out the card, holding it up. "A man from the embassy came. He said I'm complicit. That I could be prosecuted. He offered me a way out." Something flickered across Takenaka's face. Pain, resignation, understanding. "And what did you tell him?" "Nothing. Yet." She met his eyes, tears threatening. "I need you to be honest with me. Completely. What am I to you? A possession? A liability? Someone you protect out of obligation?" Takenaka crossed the room in 3 strides, gripping her shoulders. "You are everything," he said, voice raw. "You are the only person in 20 years who made me want something beyond power. You are the reason I am considering walking away from this life entirely." "Can you?" Phoebe demanded. "Can you actually walk away? For you?" His forehead pressed to hers. "Yes. I have been building an exit for years. Legitimate businesses, legal transfers of assets. I can step back from the violence, from the clan structure. It will take time, but I can do it. If you give me a reason to." Phoebe pulled out her phone. The embassy contact was saved. She held Takenaka's gaze as she deleted it, then blocked the number. "You're the only man who ever truly fought for me," she whispered. "Not because he wanted to own me, but because he saw me as worth fighting for. I choose you, Masahisa. I choose this. All of it." The kiss was fierce, desperate, a vow sealed in touch. Takenaka pulled her against him, hands framing her face like she was something precious and breakable. "I will protect you and everyone you love," he swore against her lips. "No matter the cost." You will never run again. I promise you that. Phoebe believed him. And for the first time in her life, she stopped being afraid. 1 year later, Phoebe stood in the penthouse overlooking Shibuya, watching Tokyo's neon pulse against the night sky. The city sprawled beneath her, infinite and alive, no longer a place she was hiding in but a place she belonged to. Behind her, Takenaka's footsteps whispered across the hardwood. His arms circled her waist, chin resting on her shoulder, and she leaned into the solid warmth of him. Thinking, he murmured. Remembering, she replied. How terrified I was. How lost. And now, Phoebe turned in his arms. The past year had transformed them both. Takenaka had systematically transferred his operations. Every gambling house, every protection racket, every gray area enterprise, into legitimate trade, property management, international logistics. The transition had been brutal, requiring negotiations, payoffs, and carefully orchestrated exits. But he'd done it, and Phoebe had built her agency. Small, selective, prestigious. She consulted for Takenaka's companies and 3 others, her reputation growing. She wasn't hiding behind anyone. She was standing on her own merit, finally, exactly as she'd always dreamed. Now I'm home, she said simply. Takenaka smiled, that rare, devastating expression reserved only for her. He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small box. Phoebe's breath caught. I am not a man who believes in asking permission, he said quietly. But you are not a woman who accepts demands. He opened the box, revealing a jade band, elegant and powerful, the green stone catching the city lights. Marry me, Phoebe Allen. Not because you need my protection or my money. Because you choose me every day the way I choose you. Phoebe's vision blurred. She took the ring, sliding it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. Yes, she whispered. He kissed her, slow and certain, and Phoebe marveled at the impossible truth. She'd sat on a stranger's lap in a moment of desperation, and found the man who would give her everything she'd ever fought for. Not by controlling her, by believing in her strength. She'd spent years running, mastering invisibility, choosing safety over risk. But she'd chosen the most dangerous man in Tokyo, and in doing so, she'd finally found freedom. The city glittered beneath them, full of promise and possibility. Phoebe Allen was no longer invisible. She was exactly where she belonged. If you've been following Phoebe and Takenaka's journey, you're part of something special. A community of readers who believe these stories matter. Every subscription helps keep stories like this alive and supports the creation of more complex, culturally rich romance narratives that don't compromise on depth or authenticity. If this story moved you, consider subscribing. We're building something together here, and your support means these characters get to exist. Don't let this be the last story you read with us.